Welcome to Diagnosing Dx, the podcast giving diagnostics the platform it deserves. While therapeutics and devices often take center stage, diagnostics is the engine driving precision medicine. I'm your host, David Philby, and each week we spotlight the innovators, breakthroughs, and real-world challenges shaping the future of DX. In this episode of Diagnosing Dx, I'm joined by Jake Lesinski, CEO and co-founder of Checktor Biosciences, an ETH Zurich spin-out building a CRISPR-based chemistry platform designed to upgrade existing diagnostic systems rather than replace them. We unpack why speed and decentralisation are defining the next wave of molecular diagnostics, how CRISPR is finally finding its clinical footing, and why distribution strategy matters as much as science. This is a masterclass in building diagnostics with purpose, realism, and commercial clarity. Welcome to the show this week, Jake. Fantastic to have you. I'm excited for the conversation. How are you?
Super good. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome. Where in the world are you?
So I'm in Zurich. I'm at ETH Zurich, the university.
Yeah. Where are you from originally? Because you're a transplant into Europe, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah. So I'm from Southern California originally. I was in California my whole life until I came to do my PhD at ETH. So I went to Cal Poly. I studied engineering there. And then I went to San Francisco. I worked briefly for Cepheid, and then a company called Fluidigm doing microfluidics and integration, and then Mammoth Biosciences, which was a spin out from Nobel laureate Jennifer Doudna's lab doing CRISPR diagnostics.
Right.
Yeah. And then I left Mammoth to come to ETH to do my PhD and work on some of my own stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Why the decision to come over to? I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself, but I'm into it now. Why the decision to come over to Europe to do your PhD?
Yeah. So there's a couple things. So I did my master's in California, and in the US, you don't really need a master's to do your PhD. So the PhD would have been, longer, even though I had already done the master's. And then it felt like when I was applying that, at least the professor that I got in contact with here, he valued my work experience quite strongly. And I really liked to ski, and this was a good ski spot. But also, I played Division I baseball in my undergrad, and I was really focused on that. And the goal was to try to play professionally. And my grades were, let's say, not perfect. And that was like your undergraduate grades are like the main deciding factor to PhD in the US. And in Switzerland, they looked at my work experience, the master grades, et cetera. And so I was, able to go to a great institution like ETH. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Do you want baseball?
Baseball. Yeah.
Baseball. Yeah, good for you. And we found out the real reason that you love to ski. And obviously there's huge publicity on how expensive good skiing has got in the US these days. So the Alps is still relatively well priced compared to it. But
Yeah.
living in Switzerland can't be bad, right? I'm sure you can just get in the car and get up a mountain, which is lovely.
Yeah.
Well, let's do this. We've got a lot to get through, and I'm really excited to hear about Checktor. But give us you've sort of done it already, but give us a bit of an introduction into who you are and what you're doing, and the overview of your role with Checktor.
Yeah. So especially as it pertains to Checktor, I'm the CEO and co-founder, and Checktor Biosciences is, a health tech startup, a spin out from ETH Zurich. And, we develop a chemistry platform that can be used to enable or, perform a wetware upgrade onto existing hardware, existing devices that exist in the diagnostic world. So we develop a molecular diagnostic chemistry, and we're based here in Zurich. My co-founder is Carolina Paganini, and she also did her PhD at ETH, and she won the two most prestigious, let's say, fellowships in Switzerland, and helped to kind of push the company to $2.5 million non-dilutive funding. We have a couple patents on the chemistry platform that we've developed. some clinical testing, and then we have, I mean, really a really cool. We're super fortunate to have like an army of advisors and mentors behind us who I'm happy to touch on as well here. So
Yeah, it's probably quite important, right? Because assuming you guys are relatively young and starting a company out of your PhD, so it'd be interesting to hear what support network you got behind you. Give us a little bit more on the science then, and why it's important.
yeah, so I mean, maybe before I hop into our science, I mean, I can touch on kind of the maybe the problem or the unmet need we're trying to solve. And I know, I mean, I listened to some previous podcasts before this. I listened to Fred Sweeney. That was super cool to hear about. So I won't, hammer it to death. But I mean, really, the unmet need is that you know there are diagnostics, but what you really need is you need a diagnostic that you know the patient can receive information on what they have and even deeper information that guides the therapeutic, pathway to actually properly treat them. And they need it, they need it right away. They need to come in and they need to have, within a few minutes or certainly less than 15 minutes, they need to have the answers so that they can take the treatment and get better and move on. And I mean, there's been so many institutions around the world, worldwide institutions, government institutions that have said, because of course, the sooner and the more accurate the treatment you have, the better for the patient. But also, I mean, kind of zooming out because it's not always about the patient. I mean, money kind of makes things run a bit, unfortunately. And but there's been so many studies that show that the lifetime healthcare costs of the patient are reduced if they receive the correct treatment. So it's also in the interest of insurance companies and other entities like this. So that's the really the unmet need. You want the correct treatment, and you want it to be guided, and you want it now. And so what we do is we have developed technology that can really provide deep information and a breadth of information really fast, like 5 minutes or so, um, and in a decentralized way, so that you can get it closer to home. You can come in, you can receive a 5 or 10 minute test and have that arrow pointing at the correct therapeutic treatment. And that technology that we developed is a chemistry platform that can be reprogrammed to, a wide range of diseases, anything that is nucleic acid based. And it's specifically based on CRISPR technology and nucleic acid amplification. So we've combined those. We've kind of created like a super CRISPR reporter, if you will, and that gives us, the power that I've described a bit.
And you mentioned obviously our episode with Fred, which was super exciting. It was a sort of, an almost coming out episode with Ada Bio. We talked a lot about CRISPR technology. CRISPR's had an interesting past in diagnostics, but it feels like we now might be on the start of an uptick where CRISPR really starts to sort of cement its place in clinical diagnostics, right? What's your opinion on where CRISPR diagnostics is at the moment and the sort of route forward to bring that into the standard of care?
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting question. So you know, I think if you look at maybe history to guide the answer, you see that PCR was invented like 1985, and then it took some time for it to really dig in and catch on. And obviously, I mean, that won a Nobel Prize like CRISPR, and then it launched, and I mean, it completely revolutionized molecular diagnostics, of course. Um, and I think that there was kind of a big wave and a push at CRISPR diagnostics previously, and I think it was, I don't want to say early, but it was kind of a perfect storm between, the fundamentals weren't there yet. And then also, I mean, COVID came, right? So it was like the Wild West. Everyone was pushing super fast. And I think there needed to be more foundational ironing out. And so I think now that that first wave has kind of subsided a little bit, I think you're going to see, I mean, you had Fred on recently. I think you're going to see kind of a second wave. And I think it also has kind of detailed out CRISPR's place a bit in its strong suits, like, specifically, total signal out, Fred mentioned, and Veda BioClear, the amplification and also specificity. I mean, there's really powerful specificity. So
Yeah. Maybe the shortfalls of the past in terms of that eagerness to bring it to market and potentially not being ready are to your benefit, right? In that you guys can learn from that, and it feels like this time round, everything's a little bit more robust and ready, and fit for purpose, which is really good to hear.
yeah.
Um, Obviously, as a startup, you can't do everything all at once. What's the sort of initial indications that you're going after?
Yeah. So to start, we're starting in STIs, and we're going to start with chlamydia, gonorrhea.
Right.
There's definitely a need, and I think if you zoom out and kind of look at the checkerboard of big strategics that we're trying to target, because we would like to partner with a big strategic and upload our chemistry onto their hardware, right? Um, I think that's a test that requires a lot of strategics, an hour and a half, 2 hours, or they can't do it because they don't have the specificity or sensitivity. There's of course a lot of people that can test for that, but it's kind of, it's testing for that, and also maybe finding SNPs for antimicrobial resistance, but it's also in a decentralized setting, and it's also under 10 minutes. So it's kind of easy to be accurate and slow and expensive, or fast and not high quality, but to kind of combine them all. So that's where we come in.
You mentioned focusing on partnering with the strategics. Can you explain that to me in terms of why you feel that's the best route forward at this stage of the company, and how that will benefit you long term to achieve your bigger milestones in the future?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I think maybe to step back and kind of lay out, our business model, and then why we adopted that, and why I think the best route. Um, I mean, our business model is, to take our chemistry bead, put it on the strategics platform, and help them integrate that and start to push out products, and enable their system to have new value generation. Um, I mean, kind of really the standard model is to, have a chemistry or not, but make a device, and then you take the device through FDA. But then if you need to, after you get through FDA clearance, you then either need to sell at that point to a strategic, or you need to then, sell that device to hospitals and make sure, they need to replace their existing device and make sure it fits on the countertop and all of this stuff, right? And then you need to distribute it, you need to place it, you need to train on it, and that's a whole thing that, I mean, they say first time founders worry about tech and second time founders worry about distribution. And I think we kind of really took that to heart. And I think if you kind of juxtapose that with our business model, which is, you know, you go to the strategic, they can't do certain things, they have a pain point, and then we go, hey, we have a golden ticket to kind of monopoly this, and actually you guys are really good at distribution. You've already been trained. You don't need this system wide FDA revamp on a whole system cartridge, et cetera. Um, and so I think it really enables a win-win. But the reason, I mean, maybe, and I hope this is, clear, and maybe even a bit obvious, but I think the thing is there's not a whole host of new chemistry technology that enables this. You have to have a chemistry technology that is really truly like hardware agnostic, and also powerful. So and that was the aim from the beginning to make that. So
That's really interesting. So what I actually really enjoy is that you guys have a commercial strategy laid out now already, and you're executing on that, and you believe in that. Give me On that note, give me an insight into, so where is the company now? You mentioned that you've actually managed to raise a pretty significant amount of money in non-dilutive funding, but give me the story of up to now, and what you guys have achieved so far.
yeah. So I mean, I have to shout out my co-founder Carolina, because she really spearheaded the 2.5 million of non-dilutive funding. Like I mentioned before, we have a couple patent applications. we've taken our chemistry through about 200 clinical samples. The most recent clinical test, we did 120 clinical tests, half chlamydia, half gonorrhea. We got 120 out of 120 correct, so 100% concordance with PCR, which we were, happy about. And our slowest time to result was 5 minutes.
Mm.
And that was kind of over a whole clinical range of randomized samples. So we have a good foothold on some cash to keep us going for the next couple of years, albeit, we do need to raise some private money, some flexible money. We have the patent applications, we've proven the tech out, and then we've built up the team, and maybe I can touch on that. I think you mentioned before, obviously, we're kind of fresh out of our PhDs, we're both technical, and we completely acknowledge that, I'm not a business expert, right? Although I'm, learning as we go here. But I mean, we've been super blessed with some great mentors, and also mentors that have now become advisors. So we were in a BART accelerator in Irvine, the I Create ULP BART accelerator. That was awesome to be a part of that. And we met John Jarris there, who is the ex-president of DSORM. So he's been, mentoring us and now advising us for a bit here. And we're super fortunate to have him. And then we have Rob Lozuk, who, is ex-Thermo, but then now I think he's been a part of like 6 successful exits. I'm
Wow.
sure several names you've known of. And then recently we added Dwayne Sword, who's also ex-Thermo, ex-Agilent, and he, I think, has, and even just recently, a big win with 4 successful exits. And so, I mean, we have quite some business advisors, and then we're hosted here by our professors, Andrew DeMello and Paula Rossio, and a senior scientist, Daniel Richards. And I mean, they've been awesome. I mean, also it was during my PhD, so I mean, specifically my professor Andrew was just like, he gave me so much freedom. It was amazing. So,
That's awesome.
and yeah,
Did you realize early on um, the need for that advice and mentorship? Was that like day one that you guys were like, okay, look, we are 2 PhD students, we've got loads of support from um, the professors around you and the time and so forth, but this is a business now. Did you sort of see that early on, or was there moments where, a little bit of naivety as an early stage founder going, we can do this, Well, yeah, how does that come about?
yeah. No, I feel like early on we were pretty, we knew we needed help, and I think we felt pretty confident about our technology. I mean, you start to run things thousands of times, and you go, okay, I mean, I can't break it, But then, what do we do with this thing, and how do we shape it? And so, yeah, we knew we needed help, and but I mean, it's also, I mean, these are some great advisors I mentioned, and it's not so straightforward. You can't, just come out and say, hey, I have a great thing, you should join, So you have to start to even develop the ability to sell what you have to then get really good advice. But yeah, I would say we knew quite quickly that we wanted that. And I think other mentors, from industry, also just even stemming back to, baseball and stuff, and forming a team and cultivating a team, you can't do it alone. And that's just, so.
Yeah. When you're bringing a new science to market at the stage you guys are at, how easy is it to know the competition, what already exists, what's in development, what's about to be commercialized or approved? Is that a big research task for you? Because you want to sort of avoid that risk of you develop something and then you realize, well, this is now obsolete. We haven't even got a chance to get this off the ground. Is that taken into consideration, heavily, or are you more focused on your own science and the belief that actually it doesn't exist, you're doing something different?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's definitely a burden. I would say more it was a burden. And it was important. I think, a few years ago, before we really decided to dig in, um, my co-founder and I, we said, hey, let's spend like a week at least, really like the whole day just digging through seeing everything that exists.
Right.
Um, and it's helpful, all the academic literature, but then you start to get in all the patents and all the press releases. And that was, it was super important. It took a lot of effort to really see the whole chessboard, and see how we want to position ourselves, or to position ourselves at all. In the beginning, it was like, is this worth doing? But it was definitely relieved a bit by the fact that we're technical and we're in the field. So I had already read
Right.
a lot of literature, of course. Yeah.
I suppose it goes hand in hand with the patents as well, right? If you're applying for patents and trying to get that coverage for yourself. With the patents, because you're a Swiss company, do them patents immediately allow you to be, are you then covered in ownership globally, or is there certain restrictions on what they do and don't allow you to do?
Yeah. So I mean, ETH has been super helpful. And I mean, we work with them and we decide where we want to cover. And so I mean, in order to be attractive to a big strategic, you pick worldwide, like worldwide or near worldwide coverage. And so, you kind of elect to do that. And then, yeah, I mean, you look at honestly, I mean, you look at the competition, and people who were acquired previously, and how were their patents positioned, and were they worldwide, or did they only do US, or, and, so I think, I mean, yeah, looking at that landscape helped a lot there. And,
Mm,
yeah.
that's really interesting. You emphasize the team and the ability for you guys to know early on that you need to surround yourself with great people. And they say that, a founder's greatest skill set is probably humility and the sort of self-awareness to go, that's my limitations. That's why we need to bring other people in to make sure that we have the right experience around the table to make this work. Have them advisors played a big part in that commercial strategy, in targeting the strategics and trying to partner with them?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I can't stand here and say, "Oh, we did it because we have humility," because that's not someone, someone who has humility wouldn't say that. But I think, I mean, for me, I think I'm just really used to working in teams. So it was like, hey, let's get, a bunch of motivated people together, because that's how you get things done. But it's fun, to have a great group of killers that want to attack. But I mean, I think we had kind of a general, hey, we can stick this onto any machine and upgrade it. And, but then the devil's in the details. So then I think with the advisors, it's really, okay, but, who exactly, and who has a pain point, and what could we enable them to do? What further information could they provide? How much market share could we capture, and for who? And, where do we license? Where do we sell? And so, all of this stuff was ironed out with advisors. And, yeah, yeah.
Mm. You mentioned you'll need to raise capital in the future, in the near future. When will that be, and what will that allow you to do? What does that sort of next phase of Check to look like?
Yeah. So we're on the hunt right now. We're looking to raise 2 million USD. Um, we have a runway with grants right now. So we recently won an EU grant, with the university, and we're all kind of, who are a co-founder of the company. Um, and also Roche Diagnostics joined us as a collaborator on that. So it was €1 million, and that will really keep us going for, let's say, another 2 years, and lead us through some more clinical testing. But I would say at maybe 60% speed or so, maybe 70% speed. So we need some jet fuel, if you will. So 2 million USD is what we're looking for. Yeah, we're opening the round, as we speak. And I think that would really take us through, you know, um, ironing out and finishing the tech, which is kind of tied hand in hand with manufacturing, because we're
Mm,
speaking with some CDMOs right now to help us, work through batch to batch and longevity testing, et cetera, and lyophilization. And so I think, that will be ironed out, and then we'll have some lyophilized reagents. And then I think, the whole funding round will take us through really solid formation of partnerships with big strategics, and integration testing, and hopefully have a few avenues for success in parallel to see where it makes sense,
Yeah, interesting. Did you? I'm going to flip this onto yourself now because you've talked about the skill set of you're now having to raise capital, attract advisors who have incredible experience to and that's not just a one-off interaction. It takes time to build those relationships before
Yeah.
they see the value in coming on or investing their time into you and your product. Um, did you ever see yourself being a founder? Was that something that you early on wanted to do, or was it something that naturally came through your PhD and sort of organically grew?
Yeah, I growing up or something like this, I never really thought about being a founder or doing startup stuff.
Yep.
No one in my family is in science or engineering. Actually, everyone's either in sales or is like in they're firemen and nurses. And baseball was really the family thing, and so I mean, I kind of was really doing that, and then I actually, I mean, I went to play baseball at Cal Poly, and my dad said, "Why don't you study engineering? You always like that." And I was like, "I'm going to do something easier because I want to focus on baseball."
Right.
And he was like, "It's a good engineering school. If you do engineering, um, I'll pay for what your scholarship doesn't pay for. But if you want to do philosophy, then you can theorize on how you're going to pay for school." And I was like, "Yeah, I'll do engineering." And he was like, "Just pass. Focus on." So I was like, "Okay." So I mean, I got it done in the classroom, and then I got injured, and so I mean, anyway, so I mean, I never really thought about being an entrepreneur, and
Yeah.
then going to San Francisco, and I mean, it's just like in the air there, and then
Yeah.
especially at Mammoth, it was, there was incredible technology, there was incredible people, there was inspiring people, mentors all over the place. Everyone's MIT, Stanford,
Right.
Harvard, and it was just really exciting. And that was that first taste for me. I was like, this is really cool. And and then, I mean, coming to ETH, I had it in mind, and yeah, and then I met my co-founder who was kind of like, I'm looking for a co-founder, and I have a patent, and I have ideas, but I want to start a company, but I don't really know where, and then that's how it happened. So
And what's life like as a startup founder in reality? I think it everyone appreciates how difficult it is, but also the title founder. People think it's glamorous, but what's the reality of life as an early stage diagnostics founder?
yeah, I mean, I'm sure as described. I mean, we work weekends and 12, 15-hour days, and we grind it out, and Um, I don't know. I mean, for me, it's kind of like, if it's exciting, then it's not a sufferfest, and it is exciting. And we're kind of like, man, if we can just knock down that last pin, I mean, we're right there.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, if it was boring and it was 5 hours a day, then I think it would be a sufferfest. And I think the other thing now is like reflecting on, I don't know, I mean, especially my kind of really my previous life and career in 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 doing, you know, baseball. I was like, it kind of was a startup. It was, we were calling coaches and trying to get someone to invest, a scholarship. And it was weekends and, 15-hour days and trying to improve the product, which was kind of me. And, and then, someone finally invested, and then, the product didn't work out, but it was really analogous. And, so I think, the hard work is not the issue. I think, um, yeah, I don't know. It's just a blessing to be given the responsibility and the excitement. And I think there's kind of this, I don't know, maybe it's just because now I'm kind of in the startup ecosystem, but there's a lot of posts, and governments want to create the next Silicon Valley in this country or this and that. And there's kind of this, startups fuel the economy, and there's this importance given to it. And it's just nice that your position in the world is acknowledged. And so, it's easy to work hard. Yeah.
And are you at the point now where you find yourself being less focused on the science and engineering and more focused on the having to take on the responsibilities of ultimately a CEO and founder, where it is heavy capital focused, or trying to network and bring advice and experience into the business? Or are you still sort of focused on the science and the development of the product?
Yeah, so we recently hired a young scientist who is awesome. His name's Lorenzo, and I mean, he's really taken a strong role in the company, and I think that's relieved me of a lot of the pressure of being in the lab,
Right.
um, which I miss. But it's also fun to do this. I mean, it's great to speak with you, but it's also great to strategize and war game and
Mm.
everything like this. So I think, I moved from, I don't know, 85% in the lab a year ago to now 30% in the lab or something like this. So,
Right.
and now I think I kind of like to just do the lab work on the weekend when no one's here. And so I do that. But then during the week, I'm pretty, just handling, let's say, CEO things, I guess, like you mentioned. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Now, with you being American, obviously you know the system over there, you know the importance of FDA approvals and how significant that can be for a company's success, around the world, because obviously how recognized it is. But based in Switzerland, how does that set you up for the future and the plans for where you see your sort of biggest markets or initial markets? Are you sort of trying to tackle everything, or do you stay local with a long-term view to get back to the US? Like how do you sort of set that up?
Yeah. 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 So, no, it's a very good question. So, um, our initial market will be in the US, and I mean, there's more companies there, there's more opportunity there. Um, I mean, it's kind of the saying goes, if you want to scale up, you in Europe, you move to the US. But I mean, it's just kind of, I think what's been clear too is when we speak with folks is just the aggression is higher there. So they're like, let's do it, let's test it, let's go. And so I would say we're gonna really start there, but our solution is absolutely applicable to Switzerland and Europe, of course. And any of these big strategics have offices here, and it would spread out here. So I would say, we're kind of targeting the US, but it's really the US and Europe. Um, and I mean, in that regard, we have, a Swiss headquarter, and we're opening, I mean, it should be like next week, a US C Corp. And so that we can kind of, have our feet on both continents.
Yeah, makes sense. I think that the the need to be US first allows most companies to, when the time is right, expand outside and use the whatever data approvals and traction they've got to make it easier. And hopefully that becomes even easier in the future. Um, Also, what was quite interesting was the recent news from the EU about EU Inc.,
Yeah.
which could be a real blessing for early stage companies. What was your take on that?
Yeah. Yeah. It was I think it could be a blessing. I need to look more into it. But I mean, for us, I felt like we kind of were like, okay, here's our strategy. We have two kind of positions, and then now this kind of awesome uniting EU Inc. thing gets announced, and it's like, okay, do we need a third one? How do we do this? But I think, especially because we collaborate with a lot of folks in Europe, I think it will make a lot of sense for us um, to open up something like that. And I think a big complaint with investors and across borders and jurisdictions and everything. I think there's like 27 jurisdictions of law or
Right.
something. And so I think it's just that if someone wants to invest like 20,000 euro or even less, and there's all this,
Yeah.
bureaucracy that needs to be handled, they're just like, screw it, I don't want to do it. And so I think that could really enable us to get some cash faster. So I'm excited. Yeah.
Yeah, I think at a high level, I'm excited by it because I think the theory of it makes so much sense. Um, the realities of what comes next and how it's actually implemented are always the where the challenges start to show up, right? So let's see how they actually execute. Jay, this is it's super interesting what you guys are doing, and I love talking to early stage founders who are trying to bring really exciting science to market. But I also love that you guys have a commercial strategy that you believe in at this stage, and it makes complete sense. It sounds really logical. What's your outlook on the diagnostics market for 2026? You're obviously now in conversations with investors and advisors and experts around the industry. What are you feeling about the industry coming into 2026?
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, looking at kind of the landscape, I mean, there's been action recently in diagnostics. There's been acquisitions and movements, public acquisitions and everything. Um, I think it's interesting that QuidelOrtho recently, made a move on Lex, and I think that's kind of I don't know, maybe you call it a third wave instrument. There's kind of the original PCR, and then you kind of get into the faster 30-minute test or something that I would say didn't really stick that well, maybe,
Mm.
or haven't gotten a ton of traction or market share, or breadth of menu. And then now there's kind of Lex. Diasorin just announced the NES FDA. I believe on a I think it's a respiratory test, but it's like 15 minutes. I think Lex is kind of sub 10. You have folks like Veda Bio who are, let's just say, very fast. Also in this kind of this kind of. So I would kind of call that maybe um, a wave 3 movement. And I think for us, what we're trying to do is we're trying to say, we have this technology that we think could really help you form a monopoly on the wave 3 movement. So it's like, here's the golden ticket to upload onto your machine to really dominate that wave 3 movement. And I think speaking with all of these folks, like you mentioned, the strategics and the advisors and investors and everything, I mean, the movement to kind of wave 3 will be, faster but more decentralized with deeper information. And the movement to wave 4 will probably likely be something like home testing, which kind of we saw during COVID. COVID's also kind of it's frankly an easy thing to test for. It's an easy sample. It's an easy target. And when regulations were kind of lower because it was the Wild West, we needed to get things out. That was kind of able to be done. But Q Health was shut down for whatever reason. And um, so I think wave 4 will be like true and powerful at home testing.
Mm.
And I think when I speak with all of the strategists, I think they're looking at folks like, I don't know, Visbys and these kind of folks to really trailblaze that regulatory pathway,
Right.
which I guess is to say, yeah, just make it easier and make it clear and prove that out a bit before they step in, because it's so risky to just, I mean, yeah, I mean, maybe you have you don't have a 510K. It's also just an entirely new regulatory concept there, that would really need to get, ironed out first. And I think the strategics will be waiting a bit to see how that unfolds. And I mean, as it pertains to Checktor, I think that we could, hopefully sell a golden ticket to monopoly on wave 3. And then also, I mean, it's a simple isothermal, powerful molecular chemistry platform that could be put into whatever wave 4 system, um, you know, could be developed by this big strategic. And so I think we're looking forward to, those two waves. And I mean, that should be the next, I don't know, 15 years of molecular diagnostics. So
Interesting. Really interesting insights. Next step, speed, then at home. Obviously, we hear a lot about at home diagnostics now as well. There's so much hype around that as well. And I think that also goes there's obviously the ability to care for people with really serious conditions that potentially you don't want to keep moving them, or the speed for them to, go and get some sort of diagnosis. If we could put that into the palm of their hands and stay close to potential challenges, and they're detected earlier, before they, escalate in the home, then that's obviously a big push. But there's also the big push around, um, people want more data. People want more, obviously, like on the health and wellness side, which is, seen a massive push for, people are obsessed with knowing more about their bodies now, and their true health.
Longevity and all these, yeah.
Longevity, yeah, it's all sort of, loads of hype around that. So it makes sense that sort of goes hand in hand with at-home diagnostics as well, because it's just it's almost just, it's getting people in the right frame of mind, that if you say we're going to put this machine in your house, that people are like, yeah, that's fine. I mean, I already, for years I've been checking my own bloods and stuff like this or whatever, right? So interesting. But Jake,
Yeah.
really fascinating to talk to you. Go on, sorry, Jake.
Oh no, I was just going to say, it's also kind of in the general vein of the world with decentralizing everything. It's decentralizing currency and Bitcoin, and
Sure.
decentralizing, science with the journals and all these things. And so you can kind of see that trend. And I mean, it'll play hand in hand with a bunch of things as it also biodefense, or however things go. So yeah.
Yeah, fair. Jake, thank you for coming on and sharing the Checktor story and where you guys are. I'm excited to see the milestones over the next few years and what you would go on to achieve. Sounds like you got something really exciting, and it's early on, and that's even more exciting that you guys are trying to bring something really novel to the market. But I really appreciate your time and insights. It was fantastic.
Thank you so much for having me, David.